Well, hello everyone. Here talking right here, talk about for meetings. So, if we're going to be talking about meetings or just talk about the important possibilities coming up within the next year or so, and so I could say maybe within the next few weeks or something like that. But mainly talking about jobs and tasks and other sorts of responsibilities. And I guess another way of how you want to describe those responsibilities also goes by stating as toward it. Yeah, well, when people ask you to attend a meeting or just participate in brunch, or if it's anything such as maybe a gather group or something like that. And a lot of times it's like, yeah, you go ahead and talk to people. And a lot of times, even if you're going to be writing a paper or just working on something, or if you're just going to be talking to somebody about something, and half the time you want to know too that most of the time that it's like, yeah, you're just kind of sitting there and listening to whatever this person's want to talk about. And let's just say if one of the things that she really wants to talk about is going to maybe be about, maybe just a little bit of social work type stuff, or if it's maybe medical stuff. And most of the time it's all about talking about medical stuff and the things that somebody's unhappy with. So a lot of times, a lot of it has to do with like relationships. And I know that everybody else might even say too that, yeah, well, relationships though, that in order to be able to keep the relationship going, and at least to help make somebody else feel better though. And everybody else might even say that, if that's really the hardest part about, whenever you're talking to somebody and you're trying to get them to understand, if you're trying to show support to them and knowledge about, what goes on and all that. But I drew this right here is that this person, and I'm like, yeah, you talk about meeting each other in person. And I was, drawing these pictures that the person was actually sticking her tongue out. And, a lot of times, how often are we going to pose in front of the camera, or if we're going to be doing anything? And let's just say if you're going to be, call happy cheeks or anything else that you want to call it, but still talking about that whenever people stick their tongue out, or if they're just going to go ahead and just what you call like give any sort of a phrase to word. I'm like, yeah, that whenever you're trying to, I don't know if you want to kind of call overly excited or anything like that, but what sorts of interactions do you really give whenever you're trying to tell people? I'm like, yeah, that it's whenever you talk about stuff, and then whenever you kind of stick your tongue out, and like everybody else might even say too that talk about for the cute moments, or it could also maybe about moments that you would really want to think about. That yeah, well, really that number one, that whenever you do meet somebody in person, that a lot of things that you experienced, most of the time, and most of the time it's all about to word it. Yeah, well, really though, that what you mainly experience though is that you have a better idea. You have a more better, yeah. Whenever you actually talk to somebody, you have much a better understanding about what you've been talking about, and just a little bit about what's been going on and all that. So a lot of times, whenever we think about this right here and think of this toward yeah, that the things that we talked about, what's been going on for the whole year, about what's been going on with your job, and of course what's been going on with this or that, anything else like that going on. But still, I also want to talk about the jobs though, that whenever you do talk about anything that could be approved later on, or anything else going on, it sure seems that way. That yeah, if somebody were to ask you to sit down and just kind of listen up to whatever that people are talking about, and does that make them feel a little bit more comfortable toward it? Yeah, you go ahead and just, even though that maybe if there's maybe a certain situation, a certain case going on, or anything like that. And like everybody else will probably say too, that whenever you do meet people, that they're going to ask you to kind of, yeah, if you can connect on your smartphone, if you can connect on your smartphone and listen to this conference meeting or something like that. So a lot of times, I feel like saying this too, is to where that really, you're just really all you're really doing is just kind of listen to people chit chat about stuff, and sometimes these meetings last for a couple of hours or so, and so that's why it seems like that yeah, if you're going to be joining virtually to any source of meeting though, and you're probably thinking that to where that, okay, what exactly is coming to your mind whenever all that stuff is is going on, and so a lot of times it's like, first of all, over the over COVID, and also about anything else going on in the community though, that it's like, yeah, talking about people that you do meet in the community, that do you think they would have brighter confidence if you can just kind of yeah, stand by to them, like, yeah, to where you go ahead and if you're going to be listening to what people are talking about. So like, yeah, so let's just say if the best advice would be about talk about for getting the job done, if people feel more comfortable talking to somebody about the problems, and then of course what the best advice of what they can do, and okay, yeah, we're still waiting for this to get taken care of or such and such. So it's like, yeah, whenever it comes to infrastructure, whenever it comes to the president's speech or anything else like that, I'm like, it sure seems that way, that I can also mention on here, talk about for the straightforward line, because I did want to mention that what does it usually mean? Yeah, I'll go ahead and click on the edit right here. But still, what exactly is a straightforward line? And at the time, you want to know too that maybe doctors can also say too, a straightforward line, a straightforward line. A straightforward line means, and if I could go put like maybe quotations or like, yeah, it means is toward that not everything goes by originally planned. So it's basically another way of saying this toward yeah, when other things come up, and then whenever you have other tasks and other agendas that come up later on too, and it sure seems that way, that yeah, if that's really what it's about, is that yeah, whenever it comes to setting any goals and achievements and all that, and let's just say that whenever it comes to a straightforward line though, and like everybody else has been there to where I'm like, maybe not everybody. A few of us might even say that, well, first of all, whenever you first start working on something, you don't realize how much work there is until you actually look deep. I'm like, yeah, until you actually look further into what the situation. I'm like, oh, yeah, so you don't realize how much work is associated with the process until you actually look further into it. So it seems like to me that, yeah, well, it's really about going further, and so it sure seems that way, that like everybody else might even say too, that whenever it comes to working on something, you don't realize how much work there is that's related to what needs to be done until you actually look further into something, and so that's why it sure seems that way, that whenever you do meet somebody, and you talk to somebody in person, and think as to it, you probably only know so much of what's going on, just by like, okay, maybe that's another reason why people ask the questions. That's why maybe like, yeah, whenever you do interact with people, that's how people are able to get a better clue and a better idea of what you're talking about and what you're going through, anything like that. But really though, that just to be able to show a lot of support though, and like everybody else might even say that whenever it comes to understanding about the fact about whenever, if you're going to be attending a meeting or anything else that you're going to be listening to, or anything else that you're going to be working on though, and a lot of times it seems like that yeah, well, really, that whenever you talk to somebody, that it's like, yeah, number one, that most of the time that this person is asking for the interview to last longer than 30 minutes if needed. So let's just say if the interview does take about maybe up to 90 minutes instead of 60 minutes, or instead of 30 minutes, it takes up to 90 minutes. And so that's why it sure seems that way, that during the whole 90 minutes that you're talking to this person, and let's just say that number one, that they want to see, this person wants to see how you do what you do. And so that's why it's like talking about is toward that whenever it comes to, picture, what would be going on. And then I can go ahead and put on here. I'm like, if you want to put on here the year, I can put the year on here by 2023. This is the thing that's going to be going on right here. So I can go ahead and what I can go ahead and do is just highlight that right there. Yeah, for 2023, and maybe make that a little bit bigger. Go ahead and change font size right there to about to that document right there. I can go ahead and put on here a 36, or if I want to change that, yeah. So that way we can read it. But yeah. So how often do we really see that too much of the time, to where that if you set a goal, though, that if it's really recommended, you go ahead and like if you form like a rough draft or anything like that, if you're going to be setting a few goals, you go ahead and put the year on there, and let's just say 2 years from now, this is what comes to my mind. This is what I want to work on, and what I want to work on is associated with the work that I know, and for what I would like to achieve and everything. And a lot of times it's like, most of the time that a lot of that information is not provided to that person, to that other person, until they look at your resume, until they look at your profile or anything else that you're working on. But still, that it's like, until you actually see this person, until you actually meet the person, it seems like that, you talk to this person, and whenever you're able to have these conversations with the person, and so that's why it sure seems that way, that you want to go ahead and just write down a few things that comes to your mind, and just to help everybody. I'm like, yeah, this is what you've been working on right here, just kind of forming a draft, and then just create like a little spreadsheet idea about the things that you're trying to accomplish, but one thing I did want to talk about right here, I'm talking about planning ahead of time, and setting an achievement, setting a goal, and I know that like everybody else might even say too, that most of the time, so far as the expectations though. But let's just say if we were to talk about that, to where how is the job supposed to get done? Let's just say, if somebody asked you, can you please, sit right next to me, or can you, if you can listen up, and if you can join me on this Teams meeting, if you can join me on this meeting and listen up to what the conversation's about, and listen up, like you tune into the radio, or join, follow this link right here to be able to join somebody on the conversation. And most of the time, it's like, whenever you do listen to what people want to talk about, and let's just say if it's not really related to, to the things that you're trying to, take care of, but let's just say if it's maybe for good parenting, for the parents, or, maybe for the seniors or anybody else who needs assistance. And a lot of times it's like, you go ahead and you're asked to join a meeting just because somebody asked you to, where that if you can kind of stand by and, listen to what they have to talk about, and for what better could we be doing, what better is there to understand. And I know a lot of times, everybody else might even say that well, really, the way it works a lot of times, that whenever you're going to be sitting down listening to people talking about their problems and all that, or, the things that they're wanting to improve and all that, and it's like, number one, you want to know too that, really, we're all together, right? We're all together, and we're just trying to talk about stuff, and, what's really been going on. It's like about maybe every 6 months, if we want to go ahead and keep keep any sorts of reference though about the things that the progress that has been done from the 6 weeks that we've been working. And so let's just say that first of all that you're probably thinking too that you don't really have to sit there in at the meeting room and just listen to people talk about stuff. You're probably thinking too that really that if it gets to be too boring, and then what exactly do you necessarily think about if you just kind of go into the daydream type mode? But let's just say though that there are a lot of things for what you talk about during a meeting, though, like during a conference meeting, is to word it. How do you even know if that person is even talking to you, and if they are talking to you, and might even say that, well, this case is not even related to you, but still. So there's a lot of meetings that I have listened to, and a lot of times it's like some of those meetings can take up to a couple of hours, and so that's why it sure seems that way. That while this person is speaking, then I guess you're going to go ahead and on your phone, you're going to go ahead and type up, so like, what do we get, how do we get the job done? Well, generating ideas, and I can go ahead and, generating ideas. And listen to the feedback. But there's also requirements, and so like everybody else might even say too that of course there's going to be a requirement. Yeah, there's requirements, but on the other hand, that if we're talking about that, with a lot of those requirements, though, that some of those requirements, and there's also recommendations, and there's also suggestions, right? But people might even say that they feel better to where if they can actually kind of talk about stuff and you add in a few suggestions or anything like that. And you're probably thinking too that okay, well, really that somebody's asking you to just kind of listen up to what the discussion's all about. And let's just say that really that if you're not really a member at the group, or if you're not really an employee there at the business, then why do you kind of come in? Why do you come into the picture, and why is somebody else asking you to step into the picture? Just to be able to take care of the problem, take care of the issue, and so that's why it sure seems that way. There's something about, I'm like, like everybody else will probably say too, that whenever you're going to be working a job, though, that there's something about your interactions, and then of course about for how you correspond with the situation, that people ask you, well, can you please just listen up and then give me some advice, or what do you think that I should do, or anything like that. But still, that I'm about, and I know, like everybody else might even say too, that sometimes you feel like telling people that, that's not really my problem, is it? You go ahead and figure out on how to fix it. But like everybody else would say too, just to be able to show it a little bit more support and confidence, that you just say is to her, okay, what can I do for you? Well, I'll see what I can do, or something I can maybe suggest, for to take care of the problem. But still, that whenever we're talking about conversations, discussions, or anything like that, that sometimes you feel like telling people that, really, that, if you got, own set of issues that you got to take care of and all, but still, I mainly want to talk about right here, I'm talking about, manageable. I'm like, well, where do you see yourself doing within the next year, and within 2 years? And so it's like, it's all about trying to think ahead toward the things that you're trying to work out. And that's why it sure seems that way, that whenever it comes to understanding about that whenever it comes to listening, and then whenever it comes to working with somebody, and at the time you're like, okay, yeah, well, really that whenever somebody asks you to listen to the conversation, or as somebody, I'm like, yeah, you name it, that to trying to get somebody's attention, right? If I say that, yeah, well, somebody was not recognized by their name or whatever. They were recognized just because of that blue sweater, that tank top that they were wearing, or whichever you want to call it. But still, anyway. But I know with me though that whenever people ask you to sit down and listen to somebody talk about something, but still, I also want to mention right here. I'm like talking about for like yeah. The executive board, but you're still. Anyway, but still, I know with me though that talking about with meetings though most of the time, what exactly does that mean, and do people necessarily think to where that yeah, well, the job, but yeah, the job can get done, and most of the time it does get done. Jobs do most of the time jobs do get done if somebody asks you to where you go ahead and bring a witness with you, somebody to kind of sit down with you and discuss problems, and if it feels any better to just to talk to somebody about a problem or a situation that comes up of some sort. And so that's why it sure seems that way, that yeah, whenever you do listen to somebody, and it's like, to me that sounds a lot like social working, and of course giving best advice or anything like that. But yeah, at the time you feel like saying is toward it, yeah, well, I'll try to show as much support as I can, but if you've already got your hands full with other objectives that's going on. But still, that whenever you do meet somebody in person, though, it sure seems that way, that they believe that they could resolve a problem much faster if they're able to at least talk to somebody about it. Or yeah, they don't really know what to do in case of some situations come up, or if it makes them feel better toward it. Yeah, well, that's really a part of the process toward it. We're just trying to get some ideas on what can improve for the better. And so if you want to kind of call it, it's like talking about for the imaginable of tomorrow, or for beyond tomorrow. But still, that we're also talking about that that the things that we find out, like most of the time with me though, that I actually like studying at my own time, just because that people probably thinking too that yeah, well, the things that you came up with at your own time, don't like it whenever people are getting into your stuff, and then they're looking at your stuff and trying to figure out, okay, what's this or what's that or whichever. But I tell you one thing though, that a lot of things about what I do that maybe not everybody else is really going to understand either. But the way I think about it too, though, that to talk about for interviews most of the time, and I actually think, yeah, looking at this right here, and I actually think that whenever I was drawing this work right here, I was talking about being able to see somebody in person without having to wear a mask. And of course, if you were at dinner or something like that, and you start talking to this person about stuff, and you're like, yeah, you paint the picture with the tongue sticking out, like, yeah, that's really, if that's what you call like you're the happy face or something like that. But still, but I know with me though that whenever I'm trying to show somebody something, and that you try to show them how do you do this and how do you do that. And but anyway, but talking right here, yeah, which has not happened yet, but who finds my work to be more interesting. And so yeah, that so whenever it comes to writing any sorts of articles though, and like to go further, so if we're talking about that, the topics right here are going to be about yeah, working ahead of time also, but then the topic right here can also be about is toward really that getting the job done. That what you see is not yet what that person sees or understands. And I can go and put the dash there, what that person sees. Or just say what that person saw. So let's just say if you are working on something, and let's just say that, not everybody knows what you're talking about until you actually show them a few examples of, what you're referring to and all. But still, that the way I think about too, though, in order for the whole process to get faster, though, in order for the whole process to be faster, it sure seems that way. That with the conclusion and then anything else that you think about also. But I mainly want to talk about for a straightforward line. I know a lot of things that come to my mind whenever I'm trying to talk, and then whenever I'm thinking about, okay, what does this mean or what does that mean if I want to ask a question, but mainly about a straightforward line. A good definition for a straightforward line would be is toward it all of the task and responsibilities. All the tasks and responsibilities. Go put responsibilities. Get bigger. That they get bigger or more complicated. So it's like, when we think about tasks and responsibilities, challenges. They're another way of how you want to call a challenge. So most of the time, whenever it comes to whenever it does come to taking on a new responsibility and taking on a job, though, it sure seems that way. Whenever it comes to learning new things and working on to improve things and all that, and it sure seems that way toward it. That people are going to ask you toward. Do you think that you'll be able to handle that? Do you think you'll be able to handle that job? And so it sure seems that way. Learning as you go is another way of how you want to put it. But then also that how often are we really going to think about it as to where at your own time and manner also, but still that whenever you first started, though, it sure seems that way. That everybody else might even say that whenever you first started, that there was a lot of things that you did learn, and then you realized maybe about how complicated it is, and then that you were not able to get everything done, but then you were the most important things that came up that you were able to do, do what you could with those, and then other objectives too. But it sure seems that way toward it. Whenever you talk about stuff, and a lot of times it's like, well, really, that whenever you talk about at the meeting, though, if you're going to be having these discussions about the things that you've been wanting to do, and the things that you can imagine what you like to do with somebody, and let's just say that people that you knew meet in the community and all that. But a lot of times it's like, the things that have not happened yet. And so that's usually that's mainly the topic that I want to discuss. But still, that, whenever it comes to the things that you've been talking about, for the past 6 months, and like, you think it is too, it's like, really, nothing's really happened yet, even though if you've been talking about it for a long time. But it's like, number one, though, that everybody else might even say that, there are a lot of things that maybe that only, really only you can understand, and whenever you feel more comfortable with talking about them, to somebody else, and like everybody else would say that happens about almost all the time, maybe every now and then, that whenever you do talk to somebody about an issue, though, do you really believe that the problem is that you're going to come up with a solution to be able to take care of the problem? And do you believe, I can go and write on here too. Do you, do you believe, do you believe that problems will be fixed? Do you believe that problems will be fixed? Problems will be fixed. You're resolved. Do you believe problems will be resolved when you're able to discuss them? With supporters. So that's a lot of times that's usually whenever, when social work and, text something like, any source of support that you do get. And, like almost everybody else might even say too, if it's, counseling or therapy or talking to a doctor or anybody, and they'll probably tell you that, even though that, you probably don't want to maybe listen to every little detail, but, if you're wanting to, show as much support as you can, but it's like, that, whenever people do want to talk to you about something, and, it's really, you want to know too, is to, well, okay, well, why do I need to hear this? And so it's like how many times out of a year does that really happen, to where people talk to you about their situations, people talk about their problems, but then by the time that, they're at least able to get somewhere, and, I guess that kind of goes by the question to where that you feel more comfortable talking about, you feel more comfortable talking to somebody that you're close to, and that you can talk to about something, just because that, well, I believe that my problems can be resolved if you're able to discuss to somebody about something, and talk about problems, and if you think that you're getting somewhere. And so I notice that a lot of times that whenever people talk about their problems, and people you're able to talk and interact with everybody else, and it's like, a lot of times you probably want to know too that really, for who's supposed to be taking care of it, or okay, well what do you need? Well, but so a lot of times it's like, it's like maybe every so often, but still, that any suggestions that people might have too, and so that's why it sure seems that way toward it. That jobs can mean a number of things, really, but what do we call that type of job? Toward that, can a job also mean? Can a job also mean that toward it? If you have good confidence. If you have good confidence and knowledge, so those are the words right here. If you have good confidence and knowledge about something, then why not volunteer? So I guess, volunteer, that's more likely, I guess if you want to kind of call it volunteer work. So really, that's more... That's more for like volunteer type work, and I guess for a volunteer. That's whenever volunteering comes around. I'm sure most of us have volunteered before. Volunteering basically means that you're willing to show a little bit more time on taking care of, like, if it's Girl Scouts, or if it's any other sorts of work, getting to know the community. And I guess, like, people say that's really just kind of calling volunteering. What does volunteering basically means is that you are willing to yeah, you're willing to help out just a little bit. You're willing to help out just to show more courage and respect and honesty about something. And so a lot of times it's like, yeah, well, jobs, jobs is not every job, requires an application, but like everybody else will probably say too, whenever you do meet people in the community, though, it's like, yeah, well, people talk you into volunteering to do something or to assist somebody with something, and a lot of things that they don't quite understand. So a lot of times that's usually what I see in these meetings, though. Whenever I connect to these meetings and listen up to yeah, whenever you turn on the radio or pick up or read in these magazines or these catalogs, that you read a lot about that stuff. And so it's like, yeah, whenever people start talking about stuff, and it's like, does that make them feel better to where they can go ahead and, the job's going to get done just by, listening to people's advice and opinions about things. And so that's whenever you're like, yeah, okay, what can I do for you? Whichever, but still. But on your hand, that we're also talking about that a lot of seniors and anybody else, if you don't quite understand a lot of that stuff, and then that's whenever you're probably thinking too that if you don't like, but still that your neighbors, your friends, or anybody that you talk to, you're probably thinking that toward it that it's really you don't need it. You don't need to get behind on all the other important things that you gotta take care of either. But still, though, that people out there might even say that jobs are going to get done. If, like everybody say, you just try to do your fair share. And something that the president even said too, your fair share. And most of the time though, I'm like, yeah, I'll go in and try to edit this doc. I'm like, yeah, your fair share. Should I put that on the top here? I'm like, put it somewhere. Yeah, your fair share. Yeah, your fair share. I really don't know if I don't really know if everybody really agrees on all that, but still that when we talk about our fair share, right? What we're actually referring to is that, yeah, well, if you're putting in maybe a little bit more, I'll go and I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to make that bigger so that way we can see that right there. But yeah. Well, what does that usually mean whenever it's yeah. I'm not trying to make it all yelly with exclamation points or whichever you want to call it, but I'm just trying to make it a little bit bigger so we can see that. But anyway, yeah, yeah, your fair share basically means that the work that needs to be done, and even if you did not apply for that job, but even though if that's not what you signed up to do, and like everybody else might even say that, yeah, well, how did it start, and then where it might be still that jobs can mean a number of things, right? But really that one of those things, of course, is also going to maybe involve is toward it that people who refer you to suggest you to sign up for the program today, or anything else that you might see on the advertisements, whichever it is. But I just really think that if people believe that's going to get the job done, for how it's done, and then for where and what the training results in, what resources that were collected, stuff like that. But still, just to be able to buy America, and something that maybe the president could maybe say too. I'm like, oh yeah, in order for us to buy our future, though, that we also can also think about as toward it. We're in this together, or something like that. But still, right there, I'm like, yeah, if I was doing any sorts of text right here, like to me though, that font, I'm like, oh yeah, that font right there, I could probably change that. But still the font color. Okay. See what I could probably change it. Yeah. Just anyway. All right. I'm just yeah. Anyway, I'm just writing everybody. I'm just writing here, but still our fair share of the work, and so that's why that somebody even say that if you believe that you put a little bit more work and effort than what you originally agreed with, and everybody else might even say that yeah, well, you signed up to only volunteer for a couple of hours, only for 5 hours during the whole day, that you were working for 5 hours, and but still, that if we see progress, and I guess everybody else might even say that, yeah, well, if people are seeing progress, and let's just say if it takes maybe the whole week just to be able to see progress, and but still, it's like yeah, if everybody else, they all got their own objectives, their own work that needs to be done, and so that's why it sure seems that way that whenever you do meet somebody, and you're probably thinking too that whenever you first start working on something, and you run up to a few rough challenges and everything, but it sure seems that way that yeah, first of all, that what that person is asking you to do is, please show me how you do this, and show me how you were able to accomplish that, and so it's like, yeah, so can you really come up with a whole idea, that's gonna maybe take you maybe a week, just to be able to figure it out, or maybe take you a week just to be able to show more results and what what source of what the diagnostics, everything. I'm like, yeah, if you kind of go back and review all the information, and just to kind of gather up all the database and everything for what you found wrong, and what the solution is and everything. And so that's why it sure seems that way, that if you believe that the job is getting done, if you go ahead and do those tasks. And so it's like, yeah, whenever it comes to objectives and everything, and so that's why it sure seems that way, that whenever you do talk to somebody, that you're probably thinking too that, yeah, well, that this person is asking you to just kind of sit down and maybe not even sit down, but just kind of listen to what they want to talk about and all that. And so that's why it sure seems that way, that whenever you do have conversations with anybody, and probably thinking that, yeah, you got you know, the rap text that, yeah, so you got the text rap and all, but, anyway, I'm just writing and typing and reading at the same time here. But anyway, but if we could all see that right there, that, if I were to be writing a paper right there, and I just write down some ideas about, but still, that took up for the straightforward line. And, it's like, but anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.